All right, Alex, again, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. How are you doing today? Of
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to talk to you.
course, thank you. So, I'd like to begin by talking a little bit more about Goodnight Oscar. How excited are you for this production to make its Broadway debut?
I mean, I'm like, it's just it's so crazy. I should speak eloquently. I I mean, this is one of the coolest things I've ever been involved with, I think. I'm pinching myself every day, and I can't believe I get to be a part of something like this with people who are my heroes. And I think the play is smart and clever, and I'm I'm humbled every day that I get to be there. I'm just kind of like, holy crap,
Holy
you know.
crap, yes. Well, what ultimately makes this show worth checking out?
Well, first off, um it features a magnificent performance by Sean Hayes. I think he's going to change people's perceptions of what they expect from him. And I think he's delivering this like powerhouse Mama Rose of a performance in this play. And I think the play itself is really touching and funny, and it deals with mental health, and it deals with the negative effects of celebrity, and it deals with the dark places from which we find our humor and our coping mechanisms. And so I think it's just it's a beautiful play, and it doesn't fall into the trappings of a lot of other um, bio uh,
Mhm.
bio plays,
Yeah. Mhm.
in that it takes this one little moment in Oscar Levant's life and uses that moment to tell us these hilarious and profound universal truths.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, why did you want to be a part of this show, and what are you hoping to take away from this experience?
Well, um, I love the whole world of 1950s films and television, and it was already just a world that I know certainly has its problems, but also has this sort of old Hollywood majesty to it that I find completely enchanting. So that, paired with the fact that it's written by Pulitzer Prize and Tony winning playwright Doug Wright, who has written some of my favorite things like I Am My Own Wife, and he wrote Grey Gardens, and he wrote War Paint, and I mean the guy's just brilliant. And then for it to be led by Sean Hayes, who's been my idol since I was 12.
Yeah.
So I just, I knew that this was a world that was beckoning me to be a part of it. And I was just so I needed to throw my hat in the ring. And I got really fortunate, because the passion that I felt for the play when I auditioned for it, they felt that for me, and I'm just so lucky that it worked out that way.
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand what you talked about with Sean Hayes. I mean, as a gay kid growing up watching Will and Grace and seeing a character like Jack on TV, it did things, it was like that representation that you needed at that time.
Hugely. I mean, he was one of the first, if not the first person who ever told me that I could be gay, and I could be proud, I could be what's the word? Unabashed in my flamboyance. That I could be funny. I feel like a lot of the ways that I'm funny, I sort of learned from watching Will and Grace
That's
during during that formative moment in my
Mhm.
life. And I was like, look at that physical comedy. Look at that, yeah, what he's doing there. So he captured my heart and my imagination in so many very profound ways during such a formative moment in my life. And so for my adult self to now be a part of something with Sean, and now to be calling him my coworker and my friend, is like really, I don't quite have the words for it. I don't know if I'm ever gonna fully get over that, because it's really, really special to me.
I bet I get that. Yes. So you play Max Weinbaum. Can you talk to us a little bit more about your character and how you wanted to approach this role?
Sure. Um, Max Weinbaum, he's a lot like Arpad and She Loves Me.
Okay.
It's like that kind of role. Yeah, in that he's funny and he's eager, and his whole thing is that he's a huge fan of Hollywood and of Oscar Levant, who is the man whom Sean is playing. So my whole thing is wanting to be around this celebrity and wanting to hear his stories and wanting to soak up all that I can and learn all that I can. And who I am in the play is I'm the new intern at the Tonight Show.
Okay.
That's where this takes place, is at the Tonight Show. And Oscar appearing on the Tonight Show during a very fateful furlough from a mental health facility that he left to go appear on the Tonight Show. So I'm the new production assistant, and I love all things television, all things movies, and all things Oscar Levant. So it's pretty cool in that it mirrors a lot of who I am, and a lot of my character is, hanging out with Sean and saying, "Tell me stories. Wait, tell me more.
Yeah.
Tell me more."
Yeah.
And Sean tells me stories.
Awesome. Very nice.
It's really cool. It kind of like works out. I feel like I don't have to do a lot of acting,
Yeah.
because I'm just eager and excited to be around him, and he tells me stories.
Exactly. Love it. Well, have
Yeah.
you always had a passion for acting and performing?
Yeah, I loved it since I was a kid. I'm very lucky in that I have parents who they are not part of the business at all, but they always had an appreciation for the arts.
Oh,
So
good.
my parents would take me to movies. They take me to lots of the touring shows that came uh, to the Palace Theater downtown in Cleveland, Ohio, and I'd see as many shows as I possibly could. And then when I was about 6 years old is when I could start auditioning for the youth theater, and I was getting cast, and it started happening, and I found a family and a community and a way to express myself, and some other weirdos who took me in as their own.
Awesome. I love it. And some of your other theater credits include Spring Awakening, Bear, Waitress, Wicked. What do you enjoy the most about performing live on stage?
I love how very alive it makes me feel. It's it's terrifying. I still get stage fright, and I'm still scared, and I sometimes don't want anybody to look at me ever. But but I love feeling like the stakes are high, and it's up to me to connect with somebody and share it outward.
Yeah.
And so it takes me out of my own shell. It takes me out of my own neuroses,
Mhm.
and it gets me to be a part of a team and a part of a community. And it puts me in the position of being a storyteller. And that has helped me a lot with, my own beat.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yeah.
And how were you coping when COVID-19 shut Broadway down?
Well, I actually so I really love writing too, and that's been a huge part of my life. And a lot of what I did when the shutdown happened was I just dove into my writing.
Okay.
So one of my big philosophies in life is to not let anybody tell me whether or not I'm allowed to be creative,
Mhm.
which is something I've struggled with a lot being an actor, and I think why I've dug in harder and harder into my writing. So when the shutdown happened, I was writing a musical with my friend Ben Fankhauser, and that ended up opening. We were the first new musical to open after the pandemic in 2021. That was a commercial jingle for Regina Comet, and
Nice.
yeah, and you can hear that cast album now if you want. And then also with Wesley Taylor, who's my other writing partner, we wrote a movie, which
I mean,
so
Sylvia.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, what I did was I just took all of that grief that I felt, all the processing of feeling my opportunities slip away, because I certainly lost opportunities,
I
and I
bet.
certainly went through my periods of stress and sadness and just utter despair. But when the shutdown happened, I felt like I could charge myself to be as creative as I possibly could. It was really when everything came back that I had my meltdown. I just saved it for later. Some people had it in 2020. I waited like another
Waited.
year, 2 years. Yeah.
Yes.
That's when I did it. I wanted to be unique.
Of course, you have to be unique, stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
And then now Summoning Sylvia, that is a movie that's actually coming to theaters next week, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, it opens in select theaters on March 31st,
Okay.
2023 for all our future watchers. And then it'll be streaming everywhere, on demand everywhere, April 7th.
Okay, cool. So without major spoilers, can you give us a little bit of a rundown of it?
Sure, I should just tell you what happens in the last scene,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, totally. Okay. So Summoning Sylvia is essentially this is first off something I co-wrote and co-directed with Wesley Taylor. I must give
Include that.
that half credit where that half credit is due. Um, so I'll only say half my sentences. So Summoning Sylvia is the story of a gay bachelor party that performs a séance, and it's spooky and it's so silly, and it's all about our perceptions of other people and how that becomes the horror in our lives. It's a nearly all queer cast, and but even more importantly, it's so funny. It's funny and it's so much fun, and I think everybody can appreciate it. Some of the best responses that we've had are from our straight test audiences,
Oh,
who
good.
seem to really connect to it too. It's not an insular movie that's only for one group of people. I feel
Okay.
like this could really be for a lot of folks, and I think there are a lot of thrills to be had in it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, the film stars Michael Urie, Frankie Grande, and Travis Coles. What made them the perfect cast?
Well, they're so funny. They're just so funny, and they're giving and warm, and they all wanted to come together to make something that we all believed in during this time when we were all sort of artistically starved coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We filmed this in the summer of 21. So people came out of
Oh,
their lockdown to our set.
okay.
It was really not an easy time in the world, but it was really awesome that we could all come together in this way and make something that felt unabashedly queer and mostly really fun and suspenseful, and we could all finally express ourselves after feeling this dearth of expression for so long.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. And Summoning Sylvia is your debut feature film, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's Wes and my first feature. We'd previously done a digital series together called Indoor Boys,
Okay.
and you can see that on Here TV. And that was something that Wes and I we starred in that. We wrote it, we directed it, we edited. I mean, we wore all the hats,
All hats.
and boy, were our heads heavy. Um, but yeah, so we've had a great artistic relationship together for now about 6 years.
Good.
And this is our next step, was making this film together.
Cool, cool. Well, would you like to do more work behind the camera?
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. I love it so much. I love being creative and then not acting, and then no one cares what I look like. It's such a gift to, like, for someone to not care what I look like, but to still get to be creative. That's my favorite part. My least favorite part of this business is like when they're like, "Okay, Alex, smile for the camera." I shut down.
Mhm.
Um, a red carpet, it's just like
I
it's
get
it's
that.
hell on earth.
I
Yeah,
get
it's hell on earth for me. I hate it. But I really love the feeling of bringing folks together. I love getting to tell stories that are queer stories that are told in new ways, hopefully,
that.
um, and characters who are queer characters, but they get to be anti-heroes, or queer characters, but it's not about their oppression, or it's sometimes not even about like love.
Yeah.
Summoning Sylvia has almost nothing to do with relationships, getting together, breaking up, the guy, the all that stuff,
Mhm.
which we've seen so much of and is really great and useful and a huge part of the queer experience. But so is just having friends
Yeah. Mhm.
and having a sort of little community that we've created. So instead, and to that point, something that excites us about Summoning Sylvia is one of the big parts of the story. We've all seen these stories of a gay person who's the only gay person in this straight world,
Hmm.
like, the gay character in whatever romantic comedy you think of, and there's that one gay guy who's making wisecracks in the corner. I've seen that movie 1,000 times, and I've auditioned for that role 100 times, and I never feel good about myself after. But with this, we wanted to create this gay world, and what would it be like if a straight person came into that?
Okay.
And so we kind of turned that trope on its head in this story, and played with our expectations
Okay.
in terms of that. So yeah, that's something that excited us. That felt,
That's exciting.
yeah, it felt new. I
Yeah.
forgot what the question was, but there's an answer.
Well, we'll talk about if you want to, I want to do more work behind the camera. But
Yes.
what are some other future goals you would also like to accomplish with your career as well?
Well, okay. Well, Wes and I have two more screenplays that we're waiting to see which one we're filming next. One of them is already optioned, and so I think, knock on wood, we'll be filming something
Okay.
in the next year. And Wes and I have a play that we wrote together, and I have a solo musical that I wrote that I think will be performing against all my better judgment at some point. So I just all these things, all these different writing projects that I feel like stories I have to tell. And I hope as I go through my life, I'll just collect more stories and need to keep and get the opportunity to keep telling them.
Mhm, definitely. And would that be performing wise as well?
Yeah, it is. But um I think, for something like Goodnight Oscar, the character feels like such an extension of who I am, and the aesthetic of the play speaks so well to the many things that I love.
Mhm.
So it's almost as if it's partially my story too.
Okay.
Um, but I like being a part of things where it's my story that I'm telling. I don't
Mm.
know if that makes sense, but like,
No, I get it. Yeah, I do.
okay, yeah, yeah. So I'd be so happy to keep acting, but I'm not gonna rely on that. And because it's such a fickle profession, I'm
Mhm.
just gonna do those things as they come up. And I've been very fortunate that this one is happening now.
Yeah.
I needed it. I needed a reason to start believing in myself again, all those things. Um, and in between all of those moments where people choose me or don't choose me, I'm going to be just working on the things the stories that I create, the stories that Wes and I create together.
Mhm.
And that way there's always creativity, there's always a goal, there's always a community to be formed and new people to find, and
Mhm.
connections
Yeah.
through.
Awesome. Very nice. Well, Alex, how can one stay up to date with you?
Well, Google. um, I have an
That's the obvious.
Yeah, I guess. I have an Instagram you could follow. It's at Alex J Wise.
Okay.
And besides that, I try to limit my social media.
Probably a good thing
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for your own mental health sake.
Oh my gosh,
Perfect.
I've had enough of it. But yeah, yeah, that's pretty much the
Okay.
best way.
Awesome. Then before we wrap up, are there any other upcoming projects or anything else you would like to mention or plug at this time?
Well, no. I
No?
think I mentioned them all. I mean, I have Goodnight Oscar. It starts previews on April 7th at the Belasco Theater, so please come see that. And Summoning Sylvia will be streaming everywhere on April 7th. Also, that's a big day for my mother.
Fun.
And you can check out the cast album of A Commercial Jingle for Regina Comet, which is the musical Ben Fankhauser and I wrote together.
Okay. Fantastic.